to the International Franchise Association's Women Franchise Committee podcast, Her Success, the Stories of Female Franchise Leaders. I'm Amy Elder, Senior Director of Franchise Development and Administration at Papa John's, and today I'm talking with Ashley Coneff, Vice President of Government Affairs and Impact at Inspire Brands. As Head of Government Affairs and Impact, Ashley is an interdisciplinary leader responsible for the strategic development and execution of Inspire Brands' government affairs plans and its sustainability initiatives across 4 pillars: people, food, environment, and community. Serving more than 2,900 franchisees in more than 3,200 restaurants, her team engages in policy at all levels of government and inspires a $32 billion company to be a better steward of the world's resources and to better care for the communities they serve. She's well known throughout the hospitality industry for her success in advancing and protecting the restaurant brands and small businesses and helping them achieve sustainability and government's goals with financial results. Ashley, thank you for being a part of our podcast series, Her Success, the Stories of Female Franchise Leaders. As we highlight women shaping the future of the franchise sector, we're eager to hear your insights on effective leadership, the mentors who inspire you, and the workplace challenges you've overcome. Your story of balancing work and life, climbing the corporate ladder, and the transformative power of franchising is one we're excited to share with our audience. Again, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Amy.
Awesome. So, Ashley, please share with us a bit about your career journey and what influenced you to pursue a career in government affairs and advocate for restaurant brands and small businesses.
I'm happy to. Thank you for asking the question. So most of my peers began their career journey as a Hill staffer. I followed a bit of an untraditional path, having first practiced law before transitioning into policy. I will say both careers really do require a passion for advocacy, which has always come very naturally to me and why I decided to attend law school in the first place. Specifically advocating on behalf of franchisees, small business owners, is especially rewarding. Government actions can truly dictate whether franchisees will be profitable enough to expand their locations, hire more team members, really transforming their local communities. In fact, we have many franchisees within the Inspire system who reflect the American dream success story, where they have worked their way up into ownership and now provide jobs, to their own team members and support their local communities. Franchising also provides entrepreneurial opportunities for people of color and veterans at much higher rates than independent businesses. So it's really an honor to advocate for a business-friendly environment, which will allow so many to thrive within the franchising system.
I love that. And it's a big reason why all of us are in franchising is we love that entrepreneurial spirit and taking care of the people that make our franchises grow.
Absolutely.
How long have you been involved in the franchising aspect of the industry?
I have been somewhat involved since undergrad, but at the center of my career, it's been about 11 years now.
Nice. How were you involved when you were an undergrad?
My own personal business ventures
Cool.
involved. Yeah. Yep.
That's very neat. So we've seen really explosive growth from Inspire in a short amount of time since its formation 6 years ago. What is it like working for such a fast-growing company and representing 6 brands?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, actually. We are a restaurant company unlike any other. I would say our tightly integrated capabilities provide people an opportunity to work with not just 1, but 6 iconic brands, which is not the case with our industry peers. And yes, our rapid growth makes it a really exciting and dynamic place to work for so many reasons. But at the top of that list, I would say is really the emphasis that we place on having what we call a maverick and visionary mindset. So not only are we doing what has not been done before, but we welcome and encourage and celebrate having foresight and imagination to always innovate and improve. So it's a lot of fun.
I love that. Now, what does lobbying entail at Inspire Brands? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes, I would love to. I get asked this question a lot because people hear the term or they see it in a TV show and they're like, tell me what this actually is. So
Exactly.
lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are often well-intentioned, but they can't be experts in the business model of every single stakeholder that is impacted by the thousands of bills before them every single session. So that's where we come in. Our job really is to educate. And so we do that in a number of different ways. And we do it across dozens and dozens of areas of policy. So we serve as really a policy resource, and that entails communicating with a lot of various audiences, whether that's lawmakers, you might assume, franchisees, the C-suite, operations leaders, because so much of policy impacts operations, trade associations like the International Franchise Association, also trade associations at the state level as well, internal subject matter experts, chain peers, et cetera, et cetera. So really nothing in this line of work gets across, we'll say, the finish line without a chorus of voices behind it. So we are very well coordinated with our chain peers, with trade associations, even businesses in other industries who are similarly impacted by policy.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's great. It's really important, right? It's all about coalition building. And I would say franchisees really are our greatest asset in the work of lobbying. So while my team is essential in crafting the positions and the messaging of our advocacy efforts, lawmakers really want to hear from the business owners within their district when it comes to the true impact of policy. You might wonder, how do we engage our franchisees? So some of the ways that we regularly get them plugged in is through direct advocacy meetings. So they're going and they're meeting face to face with a lawmaker. We also do what are called impact tours, which is where we host a lawmaker on site at the franchisee's restaurant. And then there's also traditional grassroots efforts, things like letter writing campaigns.
I love that. It sounds so exciting.
I think so. Yeah, it's fun.
I really do. It really does sound amazing. So, over the course of your career, could you highlight some impactful policy initiatives that you've been particularly proud to be involved in?
Yes, I think the most obvious example that comes to mind was the advocacy around pandemic relief, specifically the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, which everyone heard it being referred to as for so long. Franchisees were initially ineligible to apply. So we, along with our industry peers, we worked with two really phenomenal champions, one being Matt Haller, president and CEO of the International Franchise Association, and also Sean Kennedy, executive vice president of public affairs at the National Restaurant Association, which is another main trade association for Inspire Brands. And we worked with them on this, as well as other relief programs that were really pivotal in keeping these small businesses afloat. So these PPP loans provided critical support for restaurants to not only keep their operations open and running, but also to support their employees. So businesses that received these PPP loans were able to retain 2 to 3 times more employees than other businesses. And I believe the stat was that 74% of franchised businesses in the United States were at one point closed due to COVID-19. So without these PPP loans, some of those businesses would surely not have been able to reopen.
That is amazing and definitely helped all of us in the business, allowing those franchisees to stay open. So I definitely think that was something you definitely would be proud of course. Could you narrate an inspiring moment in your career that significantly impacted or redirected your professional trajectory?
So I do think this is worth mentioning for anyone who finds themselves questioning whether they're in the right career and are maybe nervous to make a big jump. I will say There is nothing passive about me. In fact, some would probably love to change that just a little bit if you ask my team. But if I want something, I go after it. If I'm unhappy in a situation, I take corrective action. So when I was pretty new attorney, I hadn't been practicing that long, I realized I don't know that I really love this work. Um, and I have zero regrets in pursuing my law degree and even practicing. I'm really glad that I did. But I decided very early on, I did not want to be one of those people who had spent 40 years working and never really enjoying it. You spend too many hours of your life in your career, right? So I intentionally pursued something that I felt fired me up and also, fortunately, really spoke to my strengths. You're naturally going to do better at something if it involves strengths that come naturally to you, right? So let me tell you, I absolutely love what I do now. I think that I work in the very best industry. I love the restaurant industry so much. I work at a really exciting company, for a leader who I respect and a team who makes me proud every day. So I'm really glad that I made the decision to pursue something that I hadn't even considered my entire life up until that point, and it worked out really well.
That's awesome. So both policy and politics is something that evolves rapidly. How do you and your team stay on top of this ever-changing landscape?
Yeah, this is something that I have not yet mastered, and I don't know that I ever will, but I will tell you I spent a great deal of time thinking about it. In all seriousness, it can be challenging, right? It's hard to find the time to stay on top of everything that is happening at such a rapid pace, but it's important. So not only is there, as you asked about policy, right? They're staying on top of all the proposed policy, and so much is proposed that doesn't actually become law, but you still need to be aware of it, right?
Right.
I would say our trades are really, really helpful in summarizing the need to know. But there's also politics. There's this little thing called the election. Industry trends, both franchising and restaurant, I follow both very closely. And then just general, I'd say economics or the business climate. I am a big fan of roundups. So anything that's containing links to the biggest news stories of, say, the day or the week, I receive both. But they also contain bullets summarizing, here's the gist of what this is about. So then I can decide if I want to read further or watch the interview in its entirety. I do love to learn, and I'm naturally curious, so I do ask a lot of questions. And I would say I'm also very intentional with my time and proficient in multitasking, which I think a lot of women are. So I'm big on receiving information via podcasts while simultaneously doing something else, like taking a walk, for example.
Nice. No, I love that, especially since we're on a podcast now. So thanks for the plug.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that leads to my next question with you saying, I like that you brought up the roundup for information and everything, because that would give people advice on things that if they want to look into government affairs side. What advice would you offer to women aspiring to pursue a career in government affairs, and specifically for a franchised organization?
Do it. It's so fun. No, so the conventional path for government affairs is to do a stint in public policy with elected officials, whether it's federal or state. It really provides an understanding on how the whole system works before you're then advocating within that system. If you are interested in working for a franchise organization, my advice is to learn everything there is to know about the model so that you understand both the franchisor as well as the franchisee perspective. And how to go about doing this, I would say, spend a day working in one of your franchisees' locations. I have spent time working in all of our restaurant brands. I found it to be really, really valuable and encourage everyone to take time to do that. I would also recommend sitting in on a franchise council meeting and take as many notes as possible. You won't believe how much you will learn in those. As for formal training, once you're kind of further along in your career, I would suggest IFA's Certified Franchise Executive Program, the CFE program. And then finally, if you're combining a career in government affairs for a franchise organization like I have done, my advice is to build an army of franchisee advocates across every city in the country, continuously update it. The more information you have, the better. And, if you're going to do this correctly, it takes time, but I promise you it pays dividends.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. Your career in government affairs is all about relationships and connections, as you just alluded, that are made through networking. How much emphasis would you place on mentoring?
A lot. It's something that I encourage everyone on my team to pursue. I would say, in addition to just traditional mentoring, I'm really big on building networks. I saw a study, it was about 6 months ago, on the strategic skills most wanted by leaders. And of the numerous skills you can probably imagine, right? The number one most desired by bosses was strategic networking skills. It ranked the highest. And the reason for that is because those who really excel at this understand the value of building a network in advance of actually needing it. So they know where to go, they know who to tap into to get things done. And this may sound simple or, fairly obvious, but the problem is that women have been found to shy away, from pursuing networking connections. And the reason that they do that is they see it as self-serving. So I think it's important to challenge everyone to reframe our view of networking really as an opportunity to create mutually beneficial connections. And the more authentic we are in pursuing those, the more valuable the networks that we will create.
Totally agree, 100%. I think networking is super important, and I'm so glad that you're advocating for that. Who has been a pivotal figure in shaping your career journey?
I've been really fortunate to have a lot of people in my life who I would credit with having played a role in shaping my career. And they're not just traditional mentors or bosses in the sense that they're ahead of me professionally. Some are, absolutely, but I have learned a great deal even from managing and mentoring others. I think it's really important to give back in that way. And oftentimes you find how much you're actually getting out of the relationship. Same for friends in completely different lines of work for whom I hold a great deal of respect. I would say my sounding board, or the personal board of directors, as people refer to it, are people I respect and people I trust will keep confidentiality. They are people who display skills or characteristics that I really admire, and maybe those that I'm looking to improve on my own, in myself. And then those who would support me when needed, be it through providing guidance or maybe some honest feedback that you really need to hear.
Definitely love it. So important for sure. You need that sounding board. I think everyone does. I think that's an important skill to have. Well, thank you so much for doing this podcast with me, having you as one of our speakers right before the Advocacy Summit. I think will be really interesting for everyone. So I appreciate your time so much, and thank you.
Absolutely.
Do you have any last words you want to offer? Anything you want to plug before we wrap up?
Last words. I would say your voice matters. So if you are a franchisee listening to this, it is often easy, you're busy, right? And so it's very easy to kind of bury your head in the sand and say, oh, Ashley Coneff or the equivalent of Ashley at your company, or Matt Haller and their teams will represent us before lawmakers. But lawmakers really want to hear directly from you, the business owner that is directly impacted by whatever the proposed legislation is. You do not need to be a policy expert. There are a slew of us in attendance who can speak to the nitty-gritty on the policy, and they'll even help you, in how to tell your best story of your story in franchising. So if you've never been before, and you're even slightly interested, I promise you, you will not only have some fun advocating on Capitol Hill, but you will leave feeling confident that your voice made a difference. So please consider joining the upcoming IFA Advocacy Summit.
I love that. Thank you so much. I also want to mention that the ways that the audience can get involved with women in franchising, such as their local WFN chapters, and these chapters will keep you in the loop on things like this upcoming advocacy summit. The WFN chapters are listed under forums and committees, and you can go to https://franchise.org about us/women-in-franchising. And to access the WFN chapter list, you just click on the area that says about the WFN. Again, Ashley, thank you so much for doing this podcast with us. We're going to be very excited to see you at the Advocacy Summit, and thank you again.
Thank you, Amy. It was my pleasure.